WandaVision Episode 8 dives into Wanda's past to give us some long-awaited answers to some of the show's most basic questions, and it delivers big time. There's a lot to talk about here, so let's dive in. A couple of weeks ago I mentioned that we were probably going to get some sort of extended flashback scene to try and flesh out what happened between Endgame and WandaVision, and boy did I get what I asked for. This entire episode is basically Agatha hopping through Wanda's most traumatic memories to try and work out why the Hex was created. But before we even see any of that, we get a flashback of Agatha during the Salem witch trials in the 1600s. Agatha's coven, which includes her own mother, cast a spell on her to try and kill her or take her magic away from her. Unfortunately, neither of these work, and she ends up literally sucking the life out of her coven, which includes her own mother. She steals the brooch that we see her wearing in nearly every episode, and away she goes. So let's break down Wanda's flashbacks. We have her as a kid at home pre-bomb, we have her in the testing facility that we see in Age of Ultron, we have a little scene pre or around the time of Civil War, and we get a little bit of post-Endgame flashback as well. In the first flashback we get one of the biggest questions of the show answered. Why sitcoms? Turns out when Wanda was young, her and her family would watch American DVDs on TV night, and Wanda would always choose sitcoms. In this shot you actually do see Malcolm in the Middle, you see Bewitched, you see Dick Van Dyke Show, you see a bunch of the ones that they already took inspiration from, and you can see when they're watching the Dick Van Dyke Show, you really get a chance to appreciate how much work and effort went into making the show look authentic like the Dick Van Dyke Show. A massive hats off to the set design, the production design of this show, because they really did knock it out of the park. And then the Stark Industries bomb rips through the home, killing her parents and leaving Wanda and Pietro just staring at the bomb, waiting for it to go off. And this is where we learn that Wanda has always had power. She's been born a witch, and according to Agatha, cast a probability hex, which is why the bomb never exploded. But this is huge. This is a huge deal for the MCU, because what this is saying is that people can be born with powers, but as Agatha said, when they grow up it just kind of fizzles out because they don't get any training or anything to use these powers. So why is this a big deal? Well, as we see in the next flashback scene, Wanda's powers are activated by the Mind Stone. So if Infinity Stones are what awakens this mutation in people's genes that gives them powers at birth, we've already had 4 cosmic-sized Infinity Gauntlet snaps which have sent cosmic energy throughout all galaxies, right? If there are hundreds of people out there, they've had 4 exposures of this Infinity Stone radiation and energy that could have potentially unlocked their powers. A lot of people still might not know they have them, they're just waiting to be activated by the first use. People have been asking for a long time, how are Marvel going to introduce the X-Men to the MCU? This is probably the way to do it because it's the most grounded in the reality of the MCU and the most understandable, I would say. So like I said, in the next flashback sequence we see Wanda having her powers activated by the Mind Stone in Strucker's experimentation den or whatever it was, right? This one's a bit confusing because the Mind Stone shatters and we see this silhouette approach Wanda, and it's the silhouette of the Scarlet Witch, who Wanda is. She is the Scarlet Witch, but this was her and it looked like sort of full costume, full power. So I don't really understand this one, to be honest, and I don't know what it means, but my best guess would be that this was the awakening of Wanda's powers and it was just a visual representation of that. I've seen people saying that this could have something to do with Wanda being a Nexus entity, and that was her Nexus being, contacting her and awakening her powers or something. I honestly don't know enough. I'll need to do some more research so that I'm more clued in for next week, but for me, I just think it's a visual representation of her powers, the Scarlet Witch's powers being imbued into Wanda and awakened at that point. But if it is a Nexus thing, which I'm not sure that it is because it seems a bit late in the show to be introducing something that big, so if it is that, it might end up getting explained in the Loki series, which is coming out in June. The Civil War flashback is where we start to see Wanda's trauma pile up. She's essentially alone in a foreign country, her brother just died, her parents are dead. It's not great for her. But this scene is a really good one between her and Vision, and it helps add to the heartbreak of the next scene in the sword base. This again is an interesting one because it gives us a lot. Wanda never actually broke into Sword, she just wanted to give Vision a proper burial that she felt he deserved. Hayward lets her see Vision's corpse but tells her she can't have him and then just keeps making wee digs at her. I said it when we first met him, Hayward's a dick. Wanda, when she realises that she can't feel Vision anymore, even when she's right up with him touching his head, she can't feel him, she leaves. But she doesn't take the body. Hayward made up the story that she stole Vision's body to just build his own agenda. So not only is Hayward a dick, he's a lying dick who doesn't like superheroes. So he's basically every government higher up in the MCU we've had so far. This is where we get the answer to the question, why Westview? It turns out Vision had bought a lot for Wanda and him to build a house on and grow old in. And this is where the pain and grief and sadness that we've learnt about Wanda through the whole episode finally comes to a head. It becomes too much for her to bear, and her magic literally explodes out of her, creating the Hex. So Wanda was the one to create the Hex, but she didn't do it out of badness or malice or anger or anything like that. She literally just did it because the grief and sadness in her just overwhelmed her, and she did it subconsciously. Magic on autopilot, as Agatha said. But not only does she create the Hex, Wanda creates an entire other Vision. The real Vision that we've seen through all the previous films is still in the hands of S.W.O.R.D. Previous episodes of WandaVision told us that Wanda can only rewrite reality. She took Monica's bulletproof vest and turned it into a pair of trousers. But now we learn that Wanda can create matter, and apparently people, from nothing. A being capable of pure creation, to quote Agatha. It's actually been really nice having her around this whole episode and explaining what's going on. In keeping with the rest of the show, this episode ends in an escalation with a standoff between Agatha and Wanda. Agatha's got the twins and her comic book costume, and she looks fantastic. Through this episode we've been learning that Agatha is envious of Wanda's power and a wee bit jealous and wants it for herself. In the opening scene we actually saw her use a wee bit of this power. It's just at the edge of frames, but you can see a wee bit of that red magic being used. And Agatha admits that Wanda is supposed to be a myth, or rather, the Scarlet Witch is. Finally, we get the name drop. So that line about the Scarlet Witch being a myth has sat with me all morning, and I can't... I'm almost there with something on it, so I'm going to do my best, right? Because Wanda may be a Nexus being, as we hinted at in the last review that I did, I wonder if, because she exists across all realities and Agnes has been around since the 1600s, I wonder if there's, because she's a witch and has all this power, they've been able to access a wee bit of the multiverse, or they're aware of it at least, and there have been tales, you know, or legacies told about the Scarlet Witch because she's the most powerful witch there is, you know? And maybe that's how she knows that she's supposed to be a myth. She's already heard of her and presumed this was something that happened long ago. I don't know, this is a half-baked idea and I'm just shooting my shot with it. I don't fully know, but like, that's all I've got. That's all I've got. I don't even know if it means more than the line itself, but like, this is what I've got. That's my shout. There's another mid-credits scene this week, and it is a biggie. We have Hayward outside the Hex ready to launch. Launch what? White Vision. This is the real Vision that they've been rebuilding for the last 5 years. They haven't had any way of powering it, so they used the drone that Wanda pulled out of the Hex last time, used the magic from that, and have powered up White Vision. This now means that there are two Visions in the MCU. The one that Wanda created that cannot leave the Hex, and this one, the S.W.O.R.D. one that we've known all along that's just been rebuilt by S.W.O.R.D. and powered up by Wanda's magic. On his head, in place of the Mind Stone, it almost looks like one of Tony Stark's old reactors, miniaturised, but we know for a fact that it's Wanda's magic that's powering it, so I'm thinking this is just more of a nice little nod to the fact that Vision used to be Jarvis, who used to work for Tony Stark. R.I.P. You may have been on the hype train for the last couple of weeks where Paul Bettany has been hyping up this mysterious unannounced cameo that he's been so excited to work with all of his life, and there's been fireworks when he was acting alongside them. It was him all along! He is the cameo! White Vision is the cameo! Man, they really had us going with that as well. Like, we were all like, oh, could it be Magneto, Professor X, Wolverine? Could it be Mr. Fantastic? Who knows? Nope. Paul Bettany all along. Brilliant. So, going into the finale, let's get a look at the lay of the land. We've got Agatha holding the twins hostage against a Wanda who has just revisited all of her most traumatic memories and is primed and ready to fight. We've got fake Vision, who's trying to get back to Wanda. You've got Monica and fake Pietro, who we don't even know where they are. We've never seen them this episode. And outside of the Hex, we've got Hayward and the recently powered up super weapon that is real Vision. No official confirmation yet on if Doctor Strange is going to appear in the final episode, so we'll have to wait and see. With only one episode left to go, I'm not entirely convinced that WandaVision is going to be able to wrap its whole story up in one episode. So I think Wanda's story is going to continue long past WandaVision. There is confirmation now that WandaVision is a single series show. There's not going to be a second season, so Wanda's story is going to continue into the movies. She's already confirmed to appear in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. It's heavily rumoured that she's going to appear in Spider-Man Far From Home, so this story is just going to continue on and be told elsewhere. So what did you think of this episode? I thought it was one of the show's strongest yet. The performances of the cast, I know I keep harping on about it, but they just get better every episode and I can't praise them enough. Even in the show's most emotional and heartbreaking episode, they still find a way to inject a little bit of humour into the show, and now we're set up for what is sure to be an incredible, unpredictable finale, which cannot come soon enough. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.